The restoration industry is people-powered. As Chief Information Officer at PuroClean, Nick Hindle has spent 15 years living at the intersection of technology and one of the most human industries in the world. Before PuroClean, he built systems at Encircle, NextGear, and British Telecom, among others. He's seen what happens when technology works, and when it doesn't. In this conversation, KnowHow CEO Leighton Healey sits down with Nick to talk about where restoration technology is actually going, what vendors need to prove before PuroClean will work with them, and why the companies treating data as an afterthought are building on borrowed time.
So, Nick Hindle, Chief Information Officer here at PuroClean. We're here in your amazing training center. And so, as a digital leader, this is a very physical space, right?
Yes.
And so, what is it like being a digital leader in such a, I like to refer to as a very people-powered industry? What might surprise people?
So I think what might be surprising, especially as it comes out of my mouth as a digital person, people are the core of what makes this service industry successful. Technology is there to help facilitate that success. And when we have the right technology in people's hands, that success isn't a guarantee, but it's more attainable, and people are able to facilitate what they need to do and record it in a much more efficient manner. And at the end of the day, restoration is always going to be people focused. They are the core of what matters. When people step into your property or your home, you want to feel comfortable with the person that's coming in. You want to know that they can do the job right. But ultimately, there's a person standing there, and that's what is really critical. Having people that can be really seen as, supporting what you need in that time. That's really what it's all about. So, as a digital person, the reason for technology is to help facilitate when that person's entering the property, to make sure that there's an ability to succeed in capturing all of that information. But also, at the end of the day, people matter, and that's what's really important.
So one of the things that I think for certain companies, technology kind of snuck up on them, and in the last, let's call it, particularly in the last 5 to 8 years, it's gone from something you heard another company uses to now it just seems to dominate the headlines. It gets a lot of stage time. Obviously, it fills our social media feeds. But for a lot of us, it's just noisy. It's very noisy. And typically, someone on our team is coming into our office and saying, we should be using this new thing because it's, it does all these things. Now, one of the things that I've always been very impressed with you and your brand is you have helped to create a framework and a structure and a vision for how software, in a sense, plays a very integrative role into advancing, the mission of a people-powered company. And I was really struck by an article you wrote, at least it was published on January 9th of this year. And so I'd love to just draw from that to help our audience better understand just how you think about, the interaction between this unique technology moment that we're in and an industry that, to your point, remains very people-centric, and it will remain people-centric until, someone grants a property title to an AI, I suppose.
I guess, yeah.
But for the time being, it's humans who have insurance policies. It's humans who assign emotional value to physical items that they want restored. So it's going to be a human-powered industry for our lifetime. So, for those that haven't had a chance to read that article, you were trying to hit home several important themes. I think one was a call to vendors. Another was, I think, a bit of a way of thinking about how we make decisions that impact our people when we choose technology. And then there was some, I think, some visionary strokes. So for those that haven't had a chance to read that article, give us a bit of a walking tour of what you were trying to say in that article.
Yeah, so the the market is going through sort of almost a renaissance. Perhaps 10 years ago, the biggest thing in technology was SaaS, and having cloud-based systems at your disposal. Today, the technology has moved on, and it's very ubiquitous today. The problem with that is that there is a massive amount of choice. When you have that choice, you need to ensure that as an operator, as a franchise, or an independent operator, that the tools that you choose service you in the best way possible, and that they work together. Speaking as a franchisor, having the ability to manage the claim flow is really important, and understanding where that claim is in its life cycle, and also collecting that data along the way is really important. So, as I say, 10 years ago, what was applicable and unique and special then isn't today. Technology is moving on, and it's actually it's ramped up recently around AI. And a couple of years ago, it was more jargon than reality. Today, it's reality. Tools like KnowHow is a good example of how the application of AI into certain tooling helps elevate the franchise or operator's ability to be more successful. So AI is here. It's actually here now. 2 years ago, it was stage presence, it was PowerPoint, it was whatever. Mm-hmm. But today, it's here, and it's actually valid. So as I look to what is important for our network, if I look to what's important, I think for the market in general, and working with the RIA, I think this is part of the messaging that we're trying to create. We need to have tools that meet the needs of people today, that integrate well, and that are creating that real ecosystem that people have spoken about. When we do get to that point, and you can have that interchangeability between different products, then that's going to be the definition of success.
So tell me a little bit more about that, because I've been an entrepreneur in many different industries, and one of the things I think that's characteristic of entrepreneurs is I'm a business builder because I like doing things on my terms. And one of the things that we'll spend some time on is something that I think is kind of become the gold standard, is your SPAR program. I've already talked to leaders who have ambitions to kind of emulate it as an example of how we create structure and a bit of in a world of kind of moving targets for our vendors to provide some stability. Because in a few weeks, we're going to be at the RIA convention, and you and I are probably going to both walk the expo floor, and there'll be some new kids on the block, right? We're like, oh, what's this? And they're going to come in and full of energy and gusto, and aware of pain points that you are aware of, and pain points you weren't even aware of, right? You're like, oh, I didn't know I had to worry about that, but I guess I'll think about that. But in many ways, the standards that you're talking about are can sound like you're introducing restrictions, though I think one of the things that really clicked for me, it might have been you, it might have been someone else, when they talked about standards in the way that the auto manufacturers adopted standards that then created this explosion of opportunity for parts manufacturers.
100%. So with automotive, I think that's potentially a good analogy. They define what is expected. SPAR, which is a vendor management program in its essence, is really about helping people understand what the expectations are. If you're going to work with us, these are our expectations. And they're relatively simple, and they're based upon three core elements: security, data, and integration. So the reason for that is we work, especially when it comes to insurance carriers, we work in a highly regulated environment. We need to ensure that the people that are going to be managing in-scope data, which is data that is shared by the carrier, can be secured. If we're going to be using tools, we need to make sure that we can get the data that we need to operate as a franchisor, speaking specifically about PuroClean. And then that integration capability is really important because people don't want to be having to put in the same data into different systems, which can create problems. So having that ability to integrate really well is paramount. And if you look at the life cycle of anybody that's in restoration, a restorer, when they're starting out and they're doing 200,000, what they need is significantly different to somebody that's doing 2 million. They're significantly different to somebody doing 20 million. And we have people in that full range. So one tool doesn't fit all sizes. And I'll often say this to people: the right tools in the right hands produce the right results. But that life cycle, that maturity level that people go through, creates a situation where a different tool now needs to be applied in those right hands to create the same types of outcome. And that's really important. So for us, SPAR is really about ensuring that people know how to play well with us by setting the standards so that we can produce a good sort of menu of vendors for our franchisees to choose from. That integration capability is a paramount thing, and today there are some vendors that just don't have that ability. And unfortunately, I think those people might start to become less and less important. The people that can integrate, that can produce the data, will become far more important as the market goes on. And when we work with RIA on their technology expectations and helping creating messaging, we create this in particular message. If you cannot work together, you cannot work well. Could you imagine a world where somebody didn't integrate to Exactware? That doesn't sort of play out well. It just doesn't happen. If you're in CRM or in job management and you don't integrate with Exactware, you're probably not going to have a long lifespan, I would say. And I think that's really important. So SPAR is about creating the standards, expectations, and that's really it.
So I have, a member of my team, Travis. He's in flying out Ireland today, and so he experienced what it's like to not have his electronic devices work well with the UK, outlets, right? And immediately it has a very stark effect of being like, I may not be able to use things that matter to me because there's an interoperability issue that I'm experiencing, right? And so for many vendors that, again, the rising tide of, you talked about AI, the rising tide of, let's call it, just vendor expectations, but then there's also the rising tide of data. Like one of the things that is complicated as a technologist, and you have spent your career as a technologist, is that the lack of data standards has also meant that every product team has named their own drop-down tabs and named their own columns as they would. But what's downstream of that, I think almost the unintended consequence has been there are naming conventions that make it difficult to harmonize data sets. And so we can't go back in time, but we can do something today. And so you're passionate about standardizing data. So what is that not about, and what is it about in your mind?
Sure. Yeah. It's such a great question because I think it's a fundamental. So in my history of work, I've worked in banking, and I've worked in telecom, and I've worked in data. I've worked for people like LexisNexis and also British Telecom and Union Bank of Switzerland. All of these markets have standards. A phone call is a data object. Okay. A bank account is a data object. They may have different standards in each of the different countries, but they are standards, and it's well known within that area. So the standardization around a data object or any element creates the ability for people to work together well. Data objects is not about excluding. It's absolutely the opposite. It's about the ability to include. And a standard is not about creating a mandate. You must use. The standard is about this is what data looks like. And we all know, here in the US, there are standards around what an address looks like. And in Canada, there's a different system, okay? But those are standards. When you operate in Canada, you know what the standards are, and therefore you can build to the standard and work well. If you're working with PIPEDA in Canada, there are standards that have to be met. If you're working here, you have to work with different standards. But the standard helps you become a more capable business to operate within that market. And without standards, it really does become a little bit of a nightmare. What is a job in restoration? What does a job look like? What is a person? Or what is a property owner? What are the data elements associated with those data objects? But if you don't have a standard around that, how can you integrate well and share that data very successfully? You just can't. I can't pass back a person object to another system if I don't know what a person object is in that system. And they can't accept it if they don't know what mine is.
So how should should someone who doesn't have the depth and breadth of technology experience as you do, who maybe for the first time that really clicked in their mind, where they say that is a very clear way of articulating what I haven't been able to put into words, which is, okay, so software company X, I think I now understand the friction that my adjuster is describing, or that my that I'm hearing from this particular carrier partner. I'm starting to understand. You're putting words to this friction. How, in layman's terms, should a contractor advocate for data standards?
So the RIA is an advocate for restorers. It's an advocacy group.
Yeah, full stop.
Okay. That's it. Why is it important for our industry to have an advocacy group? We need to be able to speak to insurance carriers or TPAs or software vendors or whomever with a voice of the market and the needs of the market. And why is it important from a technology perspective? The RIA is, as I say, an advocacy group, but we should not. I'm not the RIA when I say we should not. But we as a market should not be putting our eggs into one basket. We also need to have influence over what software vendors or what any vendor is introducing into the market that supports restoration. And that's really critical. From a technology perspective in particular, I'll be honest, I think we've been living with some software tools that are a couple of decades old. They're reaching their lifespan. And we need to raise the expectation on behalf of our market for better technology that works well together, that meets the needs of our restorers at price points that are affordable for people to be successful. And that's really, for me, what RIA is all about. I don't want those quick products appearing and creating distraction. We want to have strength in the software vendors that are supporting this market. And RIA, I think, can help those software vendors identify what the strengths are for them and the needs are for the restorers so that they can be successful. RIA, in some ways, is about supporting restorers, but it's also about helping vendors be successful in this market that is restoration. And that's a fundament. That's one of the fundamentals for me. I wanted to be on the RIA technology committees to ensure that vendors have a voice. Having been a builder, it would have been great to work with an advocacy group that could tell me what is important in the market. That's called product research. It's called market research. It's one of the fundamental things that people go through.
Yeah.
And if you had RIA being able to be the voice for restorers, it's actually a very good thing for the software vendors. But it also makes sure that the restorers, their needs are being heard and met, and that they can be successful still.
Yeah, I'll often hear people talk about, they'll use terms like ecosystem or whatnot. And years ago, a gentleman named Greg Horwitz wrote a book called The Rainforest to describe why Silicon Valley works. And he contrasts it with like commercial industrial farming, where everything is in nice rows and everything has inputs and outputs and there's a level of predictability. That's not what you're describing is hey, you were a creative, innovative product, you show up to the RA, now you have to kind of abide by our rules. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is, look, any system has to have balanced incentives for people to want to take risk, make investments. And I think what you're describing is how do we make the fast water the easiest lane to both discover, to adapt to, so that ultimately, all parties win. And I think that's really tremendous. So just as we close here, a lot of technologists, for them to make the changes, adapt to what you're describing, they're going to need to create some consensus within their teams. It might impact the architecture of their product. They might need some consensus at the board. Why don't you close with just some talking points for them? What should they emphasize from this conversation with their teams, with their boards, with their capital partners, as to why moving towards this very contractor-centric, standardized, data approach, why is that good for business?
PuroClean has been around for a good number of years. What I foresee for PuroClean is a much more data-driven organization in the years to come. We are wholly on board with reviewing all innovation. Innovation is coming along, and it's tremendous to see. I'm a big advocate for innovation. If that market is being innovative and moving forward, and your organization isn't, you're only going backwards. You will be left behind. Now, there are other organizations that are larger than us and smaller than us. Some will be more nimble at adoption, and some will be less nimble. But you have to be prepared to create the change. And one of the messages that I actually say this to my teams. If you are so busy that you cannot find time to do any thinking, we will still be doing the same thing tomorrow as we did yesterday, and the same thing next year as we did last year. So I actually advocate for this, and I actually really push hard on this. 20% of your time should be about thinking. Thinking is innovation, and innovation isn't just about creating new technology. Innovation is about dreaming beyond where you are today and then figuring out how to get there. Because if we as organizations don't do it, somebody else will. And then we will be left behind. So speaking for other people in this market, other franchisors, other independents, I think it's really important that when you innovate, you're actually raising the whole market, because you're raising expectations for other vendors in that market to elevate as well. And that's just beneficial for everybody. So always think. Thinking creates innovation. Thinking or dreaming is really important. And if you can do that and then convert that into a reality, you will push your organization to the next level. And that's so critical. If you're doing the same thing tomorrow as you did yesterday, that's not progress. That's stagnation. Be innovative, push, dream, next level. Keep doing it and encourage your people to do that. Innovation comes from everyone, not the people with the senior titles.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I know you probably humbly brush this off, but I think a lot of people look to you, Nick, from as a technology leader in the industry who you've lived in both worlds. You've lived in the technology side and the contractor side, and and I know I can just speak for my team, where the SPAR program has provided clarity, and that clarity has allowed us to focus resources. And right now, I think everybody is saying, where can I apply pressure, and focus, and know that it's Wayne Gretzky from my little country used to say, you got to skate to where the puck's going to be, and when organizations like PuroClean, in a sense, lean out, give a sense of kind of where the puck's going to be. I mean, it makes it easier for people to take risk, to take calculated, innovative steps. So thanks for. You guys could have kept all this to yourselves. You could have kept it under wraps, but you've chosen to, in a sense, kind of be a standard, so to speak, for the industry. So thanks for that, and thanks for having this conversation.
It's my pleasure, and to be honest, I think it's what we should be doing for the betterment of the market. We really care. We actually do care. You'll hear it from Mark. You'll hear it from Steve. You'll hear it from Frank. This is a market that we love to support. Why else would we do this? This is so important for everyone. I'm proud to be part of PuroClean. I'm proud of every organization that I've worked with, and with that experience, why wouldn't we want to do something to help others? And if we can, that's fantastic. And that's just what it is. It is what it is. That's good.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, Nick, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Leighton.
Yeah.
It's good to meet you.
Oh, great job. Great job, man. Yeah.
Nick says something near the end that stayed with us. He's been in this industry since 2010. Thought it would be a couple years. 15 years later, he's still here. Not because of the name on the door, but because of the people. For a CIO, that says everything. Turns out it's the same conclusion Mark Davis reached after 30 years of building.